On tonight's episode, the color teal is everywhere. We get backstory into Sasha's heart transplant and who really puts mint into a milkshake. You're listening to the Bad Inside and 2-for-1 episodes of Chambers right here on AfterBuzz TV. Let's go.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Woo! How is everyone doing out there in internet land and on your second screens? My name is Flobo Boyce, and thank you for tuning into the Chambers After Show. We've got a little dance party going on here. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of Bad Inside and 2-for-1, let me introduce the man to my left. He's the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who won't buy me a Brandon Nimmo jersey. Christian Bladt, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Maybe Jeff McNeil. I'm
Okay.
Christian Bladt. Happy to be here. Happy to chamber with all y'all.
Chamber with all y'all, and
Yeah.
you can join us in the chat over there on YouTube. Say a couple questions, couple comments. We'll definitely get you on the air. We're here discussing 2 episodes back to back, episodes 3 and 4, Bad Inside and 2-for-1. General thoughts, Christian? What do you thought?
I thought it was interesting. Like we talked about last night, they're definitely kind of doling out the story, and we were talking just beforehand. They're definitely at the Netflix pace. They're like, well, most people probably are going to watch even more than, like, we're watching 2 at a sitting.
Yeah.
I think this is designed better where all 4 of these should have probably been watched at one sitting. Because just think about the chunk of information you'd get from these first 4 episodes. But I'm finding it interesting, and I like that we're still not getting too much. There's things that happen that surprise me. There's things that happen that make me a little upset. I'm talking about Cheddar the Mouse.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, man, he's just there like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
There's hot dogs. I'm just going to hang out on the counter. And I know this girl seems a little off, but all right, she's giving me hot dogs. I guess I trust her. That was your mistake, Cheddar.
Coming in hot with the cheddar take.
Yeah.
I want to say, just before we go into that, if we were to watch an episode at a time, how much time you think you would need to decompress and think and digest an episode before moving on to the next one?
So just one at a time?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Let's put it this way. I'm glad that this show isn't, the traditional style where we're waiting a week between episodes.
Sure.
Because when it's Netflix style, it works when they dole out the information. If you have to wait for it, it could get annoying,
Right.
where you're like, okay, so since last week, I've learned another like 0.001% of the puzzle.
Right. That makes
so,
sense.
but I think, I don't know. I mean, I think it's great to roll into the next one. This isn't one of those shows that you're like, whoa, I mean, at least not so far, where you're like, I'm gonna need a few minutes. Sometimes some of the Netflix Marvel shows, I was like, all right, I can't start this next one yet. I gotta let me go get a snack. Let me walk around. There's too much going on.
Get off the couch. Speaking of people going through intensity, so our boy Cheddar, the unsung hero here.
Man.
I just want to have a bit of your thoughts here because he gets his tail chopped off, and
and not for doing anything. It's not like she chopped off his tail when he bit her.
Right.
That's a cause and effect.
He got called out on strike 4 or 5.
Yeah, but you bite me, I'm cutting your tail off. For all the mice out there in the chat,
Right.
Keep that in mind, okay?
5 minutes in 2 baseball references. I love it. So, but the thing is, she was cutting, I guess, Vienna sausages or hot dogs, and it seemed like that she was compelled to chop off the tail.
Well, we all know who chopped off that tail. That wasn't Sasha. That was Becky. Becky's got a mouse problem.
Yeah, because again, the one in her house was missing a tail, but somehow still hangs around her room.
Well, I mean, you still got to eat.
Right.
Just because you don't have a tail doesn't mean you don't got to eat.
I just figured that'd be the kind of house that'd have an orchid man come by or something,
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Probably something fancier than the Orchid Man, but I know what you're saying.
Gotcha.
You would think that they wouldn't have rodents in that house, but then it's like, I mean, it is the desert,
Right.
So there's only so much you can do, I think they're just lucky not to have like scorpions crawling around there. And I don't mean the German rock band, I mean actual.
Right. Hey, right. Okay, so we were talking about Cheddar. He's kind of the Greek chorus here as far as showing the progression of Sashas Becafication, if I could be so bold.
I did. Wow, the Becafication of Miss Sasha. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, now we got like his demise a bit, but the thing is, for me, I'm surprised at so much remorse she had now about the idea of how she is going on this like this total transformation. What's that say about her will to like react again on bigger things, escalation, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sasha is a little bit horrified in what she's finding out about Becky. You know,
Right.
I mean, sure, Penelope and her family get what $2 million in a settlement from the company that makes the whatever it was, the steam shower, but at the same time, it's like, all right, but her story is pretty compelling that Becky did that, you know, and that creepy notebook. I mean, it would be hard for me to get over that if, you know, I considered myself so lucky to get a replacement heart, and then you find out about the person who's like, yeah, you know, it's the kind of person who, you know, drew this.
Right.
And I'd be afraid to show it to Elliot or anybody else. I'm just like, man, I don't want anybody to see this creepy stuff.
For
you know?
sure.
So I think that the little bit that she finds out about her, it's making her upset, and that sort of fuels this. It's not quite an obsession, but she's really focused on finding out more. And you know what? Actually, I'd say by episode 4, it is getting to be a bit of an obsession. But I don't blame her. Like, you need to know because the story's too weird.
Right.
The little bits you do know,
sure.
you know?
Well, shout out to External Shockwave in the chat. How you doing? Props to everyone in the chat watching, mulling about. But we mentioned just a minute ago about Penelope. So we get a little bit more into her backstory and a little bit more into the rift between her and the other girls, and even that steam shower episode. Because to me, at first, when Sasha was giving around the bands, the Becky LaFevre Forever bands,
Yeah.
as an underhanded scheme almost to see what the scar came, I wasn't expecting Penelope at all, and she was the culprit. And when she showed her arms later on, I thought she was cutting herself, but that wasn't the case.
Right. No, I thought that the reveal was far more interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That, I don't know, it's certainly not what I thought. And then the scene a little bit later, I think it's still it's still episode 3 when she's getting into the bath and she, like, takes off her wig. I mean, you know, and then you see her back and it's like, oh, it's actually a lot worse.
Right.
You know, because she says to Sasha that she put her arms up, but clearly it got her all over. And yeah, I think that they're well situated for that $2 million settlement, you know, considering what happened to her. She's lucky it didn't get her face, you know?
Good point.
Yeah.
Here's the question. Do you think that's Becky being a bad person or a rift, or did she have some sort of deep inside intuition?
I think that's the question. Like, what drove her to do something like that? And is it what she intended? You know, yeah, sometimes you know, look, I locked my brother out of the house when I was like 7 just because, and he got so mad he pounded on the glass door, and I got a little shard that flew in, and I have a little scar where I'm pointing on the camera, like right here, basically underneath my Adam's apple. And I think the lesson learned there was like, oh yeah, you probably shouldn't lock your brother out of the house because he's bigger and stronger than you.
Sure.
You know, so I think that it was just in the moment. Maybe Becky was like, "This is funny."
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it was. I mean, again, we don't know Becky yet. That's the interesting thing. But it's hard to imagine it coming from a place of, I want to really hurt this girl. You know, Elliot talks about Penelope as like basically a borderline stalker, and that they used to be friends, but she wasn't really a friend. She was her shadow, is what he says.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine that somebody that was in your life in that way, that you want to actually hurt them, unless, what was Penelope up to? You know, what would motivate her to do something worse than just like, oh, just kids messing around and, you know, locking somebody into something, you know?
Did that story with your brother really happen? Mm-hmm. Are you an organ donor? I'm just curious. I
I'm not.
gotta ask.
No,
now.
no, I am. But you know, we talked about this last night.
Yeah.
You, Jackie, and I.
Yeah.
Jackie's on assignment tonight.
Jackie's
by the
on
way.
assignment.
Yeah. But she's testing out electrocution theories. Yeah, no. I was an organ donor, and then when I renew my license, I actually don't know if I checked it off or not. So I don't know. I'll have to ask my wife. She'll know if I'm an organ donor. But no, that definitely happened. It was just like a little shard of glass. They had to go and take it out. But you know, definitely learned a lesson from that.
Yeah, man, don't mess with you, man. So
Don't mess with my brother.
Yeah, but good point. The Blatts are just crazy.
That's true.
It's kind of funny with Sasha's obsession, and even though she realizes that Penelope is the one that put the camera in Becky's room, it's almost like she's trusting her because that's like her anchor to this whole swooped up crazy world in Crystal Valley High School. So much so that later on in that episode, she sees, quote unquote, air quotes, of Penelope and Marty coming out of her car, right?
That was interesting.
That was a cool trick. For a second there, I kind of believed that. I thought it was like, oh, maybe this might be them doing a trick or something. But no, it's another one of the revisions.
Well, and also very clearly, Penelope, she had on, I don't know if she had on she had a sleeveless shirt on and she wasn't burned yet. Yeah. I think that was, so it was very noticeable that it was that. Just backtrack for a quick second. I thought it was interesting when Sasha was asking, when she was asking Penelope about the camera and all the footage, you know, she says, I want to know who's inside of me, and Penelope's like, I don't think you do, but I'm going to send it anyway. So we get a lot of these sort of like telling, very chilling and creepy statements about this girl, you know, that makes you wonder just who was she, you know. That
is definitely an interesting point that I didn't even touch upon that. Penelope's understanding Becky is layered and it's but it's still teasing Sasha. Yeah. It's not like, yo, she's bad and here's why. It's kind of like, yo, I'm just saying it's up
just
to
like
you,
I don't
bro.
know if you want to find out about it, but So I don't know, I think the idea that there's something to Becky is on display when she goes into the place where they do the photos and they read your auras, which you still don't quite get how that works. You know how you take a picture and the picture can read the aura.
Well, it seemed like it was kind of a carnival trick, didn't it? It's kind of like, I'll do this thing and it's fine. It's $10. Hey, for you, it's $10.
Yeah, it's not like getting your palm read, which is clearly a science and,
totally
well worth every penny. Yeah.
Have you got your palm read before?
No, I've never got it.
I always go to a place like that to do it, and I always bail. I'm always like, I can't do it.
Yeah, but see, if they're good at their job, they know that you're not going to go through with it.
So
they
can lock the doors.
Yeah, so they're just like, it's 4:45. We might as well go home today because Flobo's going to come in and he's not going to actually get his reading.
I'll go to Vegas and gamble, no problem. But I go to tower reading. I'm like, I don't know.
Save that money for the sports book.
Exactly. Yeah. True story. I've actually not made a dime in sports books. I'm actually better at slots.
I've made a few dimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Props. So Sasha's sitting there taking a picture to see what her aura looks like, and the photographer freaks out. She says, "Inzin," and goes, "Get the heck out. Take your money. Go on there." I got to ask you, man, how would you feel if someone's got you to do the aura photo and didn't even tell you, this is what your aura is. Just get out.
I would be really determined to not leave. I'm like, you have to tell me why you're freaking out so much. Yeah. Because now I'm freaking out double.
Right.
You know? And before she goes in the shop, is that when she sees the creepy old lady from the first episode?
Yeah. She's on her way to catch up with Penelope and Marty.
Yeah, so Sasha's already dealing with, a little bit like, she sees like a vision of Sasha and Penelope getting out of her car. And then also she sees the creepy old lady again, who I don't know if she remembers the same creepy old lady, but we do. We don't have to live this life.
Creepy old lady.
Yeah, and then I think then getting the aura, I don't even know what you call that, the aura reader, but the seer or whatever she is. I was just like, I can't leave. I know you're throwing me out of the store because you're weirded out, but you have to understand, like, this is me. This is my life. I have to understand, why you asked me if I had a twin. Right. It's a weird thing to be asked when you do not have a twin. I mean, unless you have like a secret twin that you don't know and you're separated at birth. One of those things.
So you don't see the aura photo at first, but did you have an idea what you think it might have been? Like what would be on the photograph?
I mean, I thought it was a cool effect that when she looked at it, it kind of alternated between Becky and her.
Later on.
But I mean, and then when she just first looks at it, I didn't notice anything about like the color around it. It didn't look any different than any of the other pictures.
Yeah.
Did it look any different to you, or?
You know what? No, it didn't.
It looked like the one because Becky had one in with all that junk that was mysteriously just left in her car.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking it would be another one of those like drawings or the mask thing that she was drawing. So when it was a photograph, I was like, well, who is that? Hey, it kind of looks like Becky, but it's changing, bro. You know what I mean? It was one of those crazy moments there. So all right, so we have. With the backstory with Penelope and we have the aura photograph, Sasha's even more confused of what's inside of her chest. And she's freaking out. I think her inner circle's looking at her going like, are you okay? Or,
Yeah.
Yvonne's even saying, hey, maybe you're just going a bit too much. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but
No, and Yvonne makes the point, is like, I think this is my fault. I got you started down this road by saying that thing about, like, well, if you're electrocuted, you can't donate your organs.
right.
So I can understand her feeling bad, like, oh, wow, you've really pursued this a lot further than I thought you would.
Made us Google it.
Right. And you got to feel for Frank. He just doesn't know what to do. You
Right.
know, and there may be some bad decision making over the course of these 2 episodes for Frank, but and I like that these 2 episodes both started with flashbacks to the night that Sasha had the heart attack, and Flobo and I haven't watched further than episodes 3 and 4, so I expect that might continue.
Hopefully.
It's been interesting to kind of see, and
It did throw me off in episode 3. I was kind of like, who else is because the way episode 2 ends, he's in the house, but then it starts off with him being like, who, what, and he gets up and leave. I'm like, whoa, is there another character we ever going to be introduced to? But it was kind of cool. It was a throwback.
Right, absolutely.
That fateful night.
Yeah.
Just another topic that I want to get on for this episode 3 was definitely interesting how the LaFevres, how they both, or even all 3 if you count Elliot, how they took their own ways of grieving with Becky's death and Sasha's emergence and all of that. First, we have Ben doing his Zen tapes, which I thought was interesting that he has a list of CDs from Southwest Annex.
Yeah, and he's got like a whole like drawer. He's got a library, and then he's like there for specific things.
Yeah,
and it's in episode 3 that he does the serious meditation.
Correct.
Does he hurt himself in 3, or is that in the next one?
It's 3.
Okay, yeah. So I was just like, all right, this is weird, but I don't know, it's the kind of weird that people do, and it's like it's. You have people who do yoga, but you have people who do transcendental meditation, and then there's like, okay, there's whatever this is too, probably helps him, and then you're like, okay, that doesn't seem to be helping him, so I don't quite know what that is, and obviously at this point in the series, we're not supposed to know what that is all about.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if he burned himself beforehand, but the logo on the CDs are the same thing as his back tattoo.
Yeah.
Kind of cultish, but we're not really sure.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I definitely think that desolate kind of area, if a cult were to be evolved, that would be kind of
That's a great place for a cult.
That's a great place for a cult, man. There's people out there looking for something to believe in.
Yeah.
But Nancy herself decides to, put on her boots or running shoes and go out for a run in the desert. And we have a very powerful performance with Thurman's character.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was a very nice moment going out there, seeing the CGI deer and running with that deer for a moment and calling back home and breaking down and crying. So at that moment, though, I'm going to ask you this. When she was saying, hey, look, I felt Becky with me, did you really think for a second she was on the path to getting past that? Or
Yes, I felt like, okay, this is going to be a breakthrough for this character. And, we find out in the next episode there's a lot more on her mind, but it just seemed like, I can see being out in nature and like, wow, the way that this fawn is running alongside me. Yeah, I can see that making. Well, it's the baby deer. It's the same.
Yeah,
you're not from the country like I am, so you don't know the difference. You're just like,
no idea.
what is that? Is that a buffalo?
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
an elk?
It's all cows,
It's all the same. Yeah, exactly. It's like that. That's the one that moves, right? I don't know. But in any case, yeah, I thought it seemed like it was a great moment for her, and it seemed like, I think it was an important moment either way, but it seemed like it was going to be like a real defining moment for her. But then so she's in that car, drives away or walks away, Right.
and we have that presumably the same fawn.
Yeah.
Basically dead for a while because it's all exhumed and rats are there nipping at the entrails.
Hey, it's a desert. There's a lot of vermin out there.
There's a symbolism here. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I think it's there, bro.
Yeah, look, I'm with you.
Yeah, but to me, it goes back to like, what is everyone grieving over? Like what?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of loss. Obviously, there's Becky, and the fawn represents something, but yeah. So it's like, what did Nancy see while she's running?
Sure.
And how does Becky figure into it? And it's still a lot of questions. Even at the end of episode 4, there's still not a lot that but we delve into it a little bit. But I thought it was great that Sasha gets worry beads at the end of the episode. That's going to help.
Right.
Just to have the worry beats. Everything's going to be fine. You know?
Everything will be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And even Ellie gets in that whole little bit of that grieving arc there. He's visibly upset in this episode at first, or with Sasha having the car or whatnot.
Yeah.
And throwing the bands back in her face. And even when Sasha says take the keys back and she's on waiting for the bus, Elliot comes with a moment of truce.
This is the peace offering of
peace
the
offering.
Pink Starburst, which I didn't know that there's only 3 in a pack.
I have no idea either, but I'm doing a running tab of the things that are mentioned product placement wise in the show.
Oh, there's a lot of Coke. There's a lot of Cheetos and
Dry Bar. Right.
Yeah, I'm surprised the pizza wasn't product placement.
I guess Caesar didn't cross the check right. I don't know.
Yeah, no. It's, the Little Caesars guy, he'll say pizza, but he's not going to write 2 checks. So that's a problem.
That's a good one.
By the way, if they want to, we just did product placement there. So if you want to send us, look, we're from New York. We shouldn't eat a Little Caesars, but if a free Little Caesars came here on the desk, I'd eat it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, at the AfterBuzz Super Bowl party, we totally had Little Caesars. So we have them having their bit of a truce there, and then Sasha had her episode in the car in which she hears a song that seemed insignificant at the time, but it will pay off in the next episode.
Right, and I thought it was interesting too the way that they, that Elliot said the radio hasn't been on this whole time. So that's interesting because we heard it the whole time, and it's like, well, it's a TV show. There's always like music, music placement to go along with the product placement. But then that moment when it gets louder, I mean, we could tell that wasn't real. But then it's like, the song. There's no song playing.
Right.
So that was another one of those creepy moments where you're like, Becky's trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
She's trying to tell you some things, and well, I guess it's hard to it's hard to understand what she's saying. What these messages are from Becky. Yeah.
Definitely. Yes, episode 3 definitely put down a lot more layers to the puzzle. Before we get into episode 4, I think we have a special message from the man himself.
We do. We first of all wanted to thank each and every one of you for making us, as in AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. For us to continue to grow, we could use your help. If you're on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, subscribe. If you're on iTunes, give us the 5-star rating. We need all 5 stars. 4 stars is for content that's nowhere near as good as this, but we need the 5-star rating. No matter where you are, leave a comment so you can get involved in the conversation. We were talking, if you're in the live chat right now, we'll read your comments, but if you're watching the archive version of this, go ahead and leave a comment, and we will get to it in our next episode. Being a part of AfterBuzz has meant so much to all of us because not only do we get to talk about TV, which of course we love, you get to meet great people like Flobo, which we met on the Star Trek Discovery After Show.
Good show.
And here we are doing another good show. Yeah. So we really appreciate you, every one of you out there, helping us do everything that we love. So do not forget, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your neighbors, tell the people across the street, down the street. Let them know and keep enjoying our shows.
How many stars?
I'm going to go with 10, except you can only do 5.
All right.
So do it twice. Yeah. Do it in two different browsers. You sign in one, you give us 5, and then the other one give us 5 more.
Same IP addresses. All right. Love it. Episode 4 is called 2 for 1. The big story here was what I like to call the LaFevre heist.
Yeah.
So Sasha gets the footage back from, or at least some
Eventually.
some interpretation of the footage. We're not quite sure if it's the entire thing, but we think so. Based on what we
and way to not check the compatibility with the iPhone there, Penelope.
Yeah, I know, right?
She's like, well, I can't watch it. Thanks, Penelope. That was a huge help.
Yeah. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So we see some footage. Our girl Sasha definitely wearing, from old school, I would say a nightie. I don't know what the actual term is. Pajamas.
I guess.
Nightgown,
Well, here we are at the disadvantage without having a lady here at the table with us.
Right?
Because I don't know what to call it. It's a nightgown. Sure.
Sleep clothes.
It's a desert. It's hot. You go to bed.
Very similar to Becky's doing what I would call a man, like a dance. I mean, what would you say that would be? A trance?
I mean, cry for help, but no, it's a dance. It's
cry for help. Totally unaware to her. Understanding it has to be a bit more there. Sasha decides to go back to the LaFevre house. Now, 2 things I learned from this when she goes back there is that the car is tracked. There's definitely some GPS action there, which, dang it, man, like, come on.
Well, because the interesting thing there is something we didn't talk about when we were talking about episode 3, that there was this instance of Sasha signing her name as Becky.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that looked like Becky's handwriting.
Yes.
Because that had been emailed to Ben, to Becky's father.
That was the second thing I noticed.
Yeah. And, okay. Yeah. And so that's what makes him be like, well, where is that girl? There's a lot going on here.
No.
And it was in the previous episode that he... what did she had tied something, and he asked her, like, what do you have you ever been sailing?
Yeah, I forgot what it's called. But
Yeah, I
the,
do
the,
too.
The sailing knot.
That
was
that shows you how much sailing that Flobo and I
Oh,
have
yeah,
done.
yeah, in Brooklyn
Yeah.
all the time, bro.
Yeah, the Staten Island Ferry, you don't have to tie that up. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
just walk right on.
Yeah, so, so he's, and because he's into, I don't know, the term chakras has never come up in the show, but he's into, the crystals and the meditation and all
Oh,
this stuff.
chakras. These
Yeah.
are shockers. I was like, what?
Yeah, no. But the Spider-Man villain.
Yes, that's what I
Yeah,
meant.
yeah, that's what I meant too.
Oh
But the idea that, I think he's just like Sasha's like, all right, I think Becky's still around. Like, he's clearly ahead of the curve, especially for his household, in thinking that, okay, there is a connection here that we don't see. And he's very interested in finding out more of it, I think.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Seeing Ben at the desk, seeing his email, looking with getting emails from Coach Jones, which it's weird that his email acts as Coach Jones, which is kind of weird. I mean, he just called himself the coach. Okay, whatever.
No, hey.
And the sign like Becky, and then seeing and saying he's listening to a song like she knows and not, and the car is being tracked. I always knew something shady about Creepy Dad. He's been creepy the entire time, but this is actually extra layer to it, and it kind of pays off in this episode a bit. So Sasha has a bright idea to bring the car in and to use that as an excuse to get inside the house. And for whatever reason, how she does it, she gets inside successful. Now she puts on the gown. And you're waiting for something to happen, and then nothing.
Yeah.
At that moment in
That's
time,
what I expected.
At the moment in time, you expected that?
I expected, like, she's going to get in there, and I didn't think that it would go further after that. I thought it was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I thought she'd been caught as well.
That's really the thing is, like, she's already been in that room before, and Nancy was like, what are you doing in here? So the idea, it's like, so you're in here again.
Yeah.
What exactly are you doing in here? And also, why are you trying on her clothes and dancing? So it was a pretty quick jump for Sasha that, like, oh, well, judging from this video, I need to recreate what Becky's doing here, and then she'll be able to tell me. I mean, it worked, so I guess Sasha's just smarter than I am.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
I would assume.
I think
she's
most
smart.
17-year-old high school kids are smarter than me.
With a demon heart, I
yeah.
figure.
Yeah, especially those with a demon heart. Yeah.
So she's kind of disappointed. There, heads into the shower, takes off the nightgown, touches the handle, and then she's in. The lights change, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying she's like hallucinating, but she definitely sees Becky in the mirror there, and that starts another episode there where she passes out.
Yeah, and there's somebody coming. The door handle is like about to open, although it seems like it's locked. So somebody's trying to force the door open. We don't see who though, So yeah, so whatever it was too intense for her to be able to handle it. And you gotta go easy on that heart, Sasha. Like look what you did to the last one.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm just saying, So like, calm down. Like you're putting yourself through this stuff.
So Sasha just gets a spa past the end.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well,
it's not so much of her passing out as what happens after she wakes up. So she's in the hospital. A couple things to pull from this. One, she has blonde streaks in her hair now.
That was interesting. Yeah. I thought that those weren't really there. I thought she saw that.
Right.
But then the nurse comments on them, and you're like, oh, so that really happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, now is she gonna like physically change? And that's a whole other thing altogether.
That would be interesting. Yeah. If she gradually started to just look more like Becky. Yeah.
Right. And Ben says that she found him in the driveway.
Yeah. Which is, and Sasha knows that's not true. So it's. It gives me the impression that he is like, I'm going to talk to her more about this when I get the opportunity. But poor Frank. Frank's just like, I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do. And we'll get to Frank in a quick second.
Yeah, no, I know. But so it's like in that moment, so Ben's got a whole thing going on.
Right.
And Frank doesn't know what's going on. But like there's sort of, I don't even think that they look at each other, Sasha and Ben. But Sasha's like, okay, so he lied for me, and I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah.
But it sounds better than if it was like, yeah, so she was naked in my dead daughter's bathroom, and I found her there. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's just like what's his game? I think Ben's game is to just find out more. Of what's going on, which is my game too, in watching the show.
Yeah, what is going on? And real quick, in that scene when discussing the events with Yvonne, she sees the wolf, right?
Oh, yeah, the coyote,
the wolf, right?
Same difference.
Yeah,
From Brooklyn.
Like, deer and fawn. I am the worst at speak and say. That's pretty much.
They're all cow.
They're all moo.
These all say moo, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So she's also seeing things that are a bit more passive too. So not like the act of like Becky screams or like flashes of vision, but she's actually having prolonged and extended hallucinations.
Yeah, and like a coyote that's got like blood in its fur.
Yeah.
So this is like a coyote that's just killed. And at this point, I know you're going to cover Frank in a second, but we've heard about the coyotes earlier in the episode. So it's obviously something that is, I don't know, it obviously has greater significance that she's seeing it when we see that she sees it. And Yvonne's like, I don't see anything. There's nothing right there.
Dang, Sasha, stay strong, girl.
Seriously.
Or don't get more blonde. I don't know.
Yeah.
So our man Frank, man, talk about thankless roles. I mean, he's trying to make sure Sasha's on the straight and narrow, trying to get the cash raised to get the experimental anxiety meds.
Help on Johnny.
Woo, old friend apparently, right?
But one of those kind of friends though.
Yeah, one of those kind of friends. Worse than a loan shark. I actually have it here. He's probably moonlighting as a bad loan shark. Tries to offer him a loan of $1,500 with a $200
a week vig. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that's like worse than Jorah, man. It's pretty bad.
Well, I get it because I mean that's how it works. Is like, you're not going to be able to pay it back.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you can come up with $200 a week, but you can't come up with the $1,600. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone to him in the first place.
That's definitely true.
And I don't know, when you're looking for to be bonded to get out of jail, it's worth it.
Right.
But when you're doing it as a short-term loan.
Yeah, you're just asking for it.
Frank, sell some more fish. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, that's the impetus of today's episode. 2 for 1.
Yeah,
out there trying
that's
to do
true.
a little in the desert, which is kind of, the more you think about it, the more ridiculous it is, right? This guy owning a fish shop and like.
Well, that's what he said. It's like if you're in the desert, you want saltwater fish because you can't really have them.
Yeah,
so
man,
it's like exotic.
It's exotic. My gosh.
I mean, look, we can't all be Tracy Morgan and have our own Shark Tank. All right.
That is true.
Yeah.
Tracy Morgan's a legend.
That's true.
He is. Twilight Zone? I'm correct. So I'm going to show you the host here at AfterBuzz TV.
You can tune in tomorrow night at the same time at 10 p.m.
Synergy.
10 p.m. Pacific, I almost said. 10 p.m. Pacific. I'll be covering the Twilight Zone. Yes, thank you.
Excellent. So, but we do see a new character. Frank's dad, Harrison Yazzie,
Yes.
shows up. It's not quite clear, but I guess he's one of the custodians of the tribal funds, and where he has to authorize the request. And he said he was going to do it, but he wants Frank to understand that there is bad auras around Sasha or them in the family, and Frank's having none of that.
Right, and we know from this episode or the earlier, I think it's the earlier episode, that they were basically sending cedar. And there's letters with it trying to explain that bad things are happening. And Frank had told, I forget
Deacon.
Deacon, thank you.
We haven't talked about it yet in the show.
Yeah, I guess we haven't talked about it. I mean, it's an interesting character, by the way. Yeah. That he comes across the cedar and is like, "I'm sorry I opened your drugs, but I'm going to get in trouble." And he's like, "Man, it's not drugs, but I get it." Right. So so Frank's dad had been sending this for a while, and he had told Deacon, just if you see anything come from that address, just throw it away. So Frank didn't want to know, but he definitely didn't know that there were these concerns about what's going on,
Yeah, I don't claim to know anything about DNA, which I guess is like a internal word for Apache or Navajo culture, but it is kind of cool to see from an outside perspective of the different levels of respect to the customs religion through TJ, to Frank, to Harrison, and all that. But what do you think Harrison means specifically? I mean, you think... But this bad vibe, it seemed to be generational. I mean, Frank's sister, I guess, Sasha's mom had that kind of bad thing, and it's still there in the house. What do you think? Is it a single thing? Do you think it's just a multiple? Is it waves?
I think they're different things, but there's just something bad. I don't know. It's like the old lady. There's something bad in Sasha because she has this heart, and it's there's obviously a lot of concern. And again, we have concern about what Becky has done before she died. So, like, how bad of a person was she?
Mm-hmm.
And So yeah, I can see them being troubling. So that's why when we saw the coyote in the scene in the hospital, like we mentioned, we're like, oh, okay, so this is like real. Whatever this symbolizes is something that we should pay attention to. Frank,
Right.
don't brush it off just because you have a problem with your dad.
So, Sasha, if you're Frank, do you get the money from Pop, from Johnny, your fish, something else?
Oh, I would not get it from the bail bond guy. I mean, I understand the. Interesting, by the way, that the doctor's like, your insurance won't cover it, but we can get you some experimental medication. I'm like, all right, well, what is that? He didn't really ask that many questions.
Yeah, he's like,
Frank's
good
like, all
stuff.
right, let me just get you some money. I'll work on that. I don't know. I'd find another way. I mean, I understand you don't want to be beholden to Becky's family, but I don't know. I think $1,600 is, there would be a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Elliott's rehab, was cost less. Cost a lot more. I said the opposite of what I was thinking.
Villain.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I just feel like the avenue with his dad is probably the best one, and it's just whatever that is, just swallow that pride that your dad mentions. And just have him help you out because it's for Sasha,
Right.
It's like, so make that sacrifice. But I don't know. I think the sacrifice with Bail Bond Johnny is not the way to go.
Bail Bond Johnny sounds like a goon,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. The doctor is pretty sketchy. And speaking of doctors, Nancy gets some interesting news in this episode, right?
Yes.
Her doctor says, well, you may be pregnant. And she goes, oh, I can't be. I haven't had sex with my husband for months.
Yeah, I know. And then a good doctor would ask, well, how many months? 3?
Yeah.
Because, maybe. No, I'm just
Right.
kidding. But, no, I get it. I understand where she's coming from. It doesn't actually make sense. So then that does ask the question, is like, you haven't had sex with your husband in 3 months, but anybody else?
Right.
Anything else going on that you want to talk about, Nancy?
Nope, you've been traumatized. You have
Yeah,
some
no, I
trauma.
get that.
Straight up
But,
to-
yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think that's going to lead to? If I'm just me.
I mean, so we didn't talk about the scene with her and Elliot, but
was my question.
at that point is when because she said that she had a craving for the fast food. I'm like, okay, so she's pregnant.
Yeah.
So I've shared a home with a pregnant woman 2 times because my wife
Did
had 2
know
kids.
who you were? Oh, your wife.
Yeah,
I was like, some
right.
random
Yeah,
word.
just let them in. I was like, here's some keys. Go ahead.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, my wife's pregnant 2 times, and I'm just like, oh yeah, sometimes you just need to eat. I mean, getting a burger and a milkshake is not that strange. It's usually like a little bit quirkier combination. If it was like, yeah, it just seems to be the one that I want to eat. But anyway, hearing that, I'm like, okay, so she's pregnant. That's what it. Because and we saw that she had an appointment at the doctor that she was going to have to try and make. So we saw that alert pop up on her phone. So we knew that already. And so anyway, I wasn't surprised that as they're testing her for. They're giving her a mammogram and all that stuff. I'm like, no, you're pregnant.
Right. Well, that I guess she wasn't expecting that. I kind of put a little bit of a rift in the beginning of the mending of the relationship between Nancy and Elliot. I mean, they're on the way to drop him off to his community service. They stop for milkshakes with mint in them. Is that a thing, really? I have no idea.
I mean, so look, there's an ice cream that's like chocolate chip mint. I can understand. You can turn that into a milkshake. But I can't imagine that that's at the top of the list. When you go to Sonic and they have like 50 flavors, you feel like that's not like in the top 10. So it must be a thing because clearly it's what Becky liked.
Right, and that was a little bit of a rift in between there. Like that's Becky's thing, and Nancy's like, I'm trying, and Elliot's like, cool. Drives him to his community service, and she goes,
well, let me just interject really fast because there was a great moment there for Elliot where he asks, "Was the last thing you said to her?" And she said, "I told her I love her." And he's like, "Yeah, the last thing I said to her was go to hell."
Right.
And you can see
Absolutely.
that's a tough thing to have to deal with. That your sister. I mean, if you said that to anybody and they passed away, I could see that sitting with you. But if you said it to your own sister and then she died and you never got to say anything else, so I can, that gives us a little bit more insight into his frame of mind.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a sympathetic moment there for Elliot, for sure. And I think
Of which
Nancy-
there are not many sympathetic
I
moments.
mean, Pink Starburst is a sacrifice. I
That
don't
was
know.
nice.
Yeah, it was
That's
a
true.
sacrifice.
That was
but,
nice.
but you definitely have like this moment when Nancy drops Elliot off and goes, I'll come back for you. I want you. And, she gets that news, and poor Elliot's out there just waiting, like the kid being late for practice. Like, where's my mom?
Yeah.
The cop shows up. It's Route 666. Like, no.
Yeah,
it's
and he's like,
Route
he's like, no, it's not. And
Get
the
out of
cop's
here, old man.
Yeah, I was just like, take a ride from the cop, dummy.
I know.
You know?
But he's out there waiting for mom, and he had to call an Uber at the end. So, like, I think that had a little bit of an arc there of them being apart, them trying to make it work, and then for whatever happened with circumstances, it's kind of maybe back to square one. It was a little bit beyond square one, but it was kind of just a gut-wrenching scene for poor Elliot out there.
Yeah,
and
no,
his
no,
son.
absolutely. I thought, yeah, and he was like starting to connect with his mother, and then she stranded him, and he even said like, "Don't come back for me,"
Right.
and she's like, "No, I want to," So, yeah, I think. Well, we'll see. It seemed like he was determined to walk down the road a little bit. So we'll see, I guess, in the next one. And obviously, chronologically in the episode, the next part is when Sasha sees the coyote, but Frank also sees a coyote. So it's interesting. It's like, oh, they are circling this girl.
Yeah.
So if Frank sees it, that's the real one. Sasha sees the one in her mind, the bloody one, which wasn't real. So I don't know. I'm getting a little uneasy around all of this.
Yeah. I understand. I'm almost out of time, but I want to get your predictions real quick.
Right. Well, the last thing that happens,
Gotta wait for this vibe.
we gotta wait for the thing.
AfterBuzz TV prediction.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
The last thing that happens in the episode, which we're not really that focused on the nurse taking her blood. So the fact that she gives it to someone in a car, and I don't think we know who that is, that is clearly not identified to us. So that raises a lot of questions. Like, is that Ben? Is that somebody with the tribe, for lack of a better term to call them, because they would be concerned? Is it somebody else entirely? So my thinking is that it is somebody in the tribe, and they're really focused on this, and they want to get her blood. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that on the reservation they have their own lab where they can analyze it in their own way. So I think that we're going to really dive into that a lot more in episodes 5 and 6. And as Flobo and I mentioned, we haven't seen those yet, so
Right,
we
yeah.
can actually do predictions with that. And
I
think I know what's going to happen.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
Yeah. My thing is more about that Southwest Annex thing. I do think it is some sort of cult or other organization.
Yeah.
And Coach Jones is a part of it. So I do.
Okay, yeah, Coach Jones and Ben are definitely all for one and one for all.
One
for
for
sure.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to the episode 3 and 4 recap of Chambers. Christian DMZ, that's what they call you, or Christian?
That's where you can find me.
Yeah.
You can find me at Christian DMZ on Twitter and Instagram, as I mentioned before. You can find me tomorrow night at 10 on the Twilight Zone After Show, and also tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. over on the Popcorn Talk. We'll be doing Marvel movie news, continuing our spoiler-filled reaction to Avengers Endgame. So you can find us at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern over there.
You never put over the Blackcast. You never say I have this podcast.
I do too much here on the network, but I do have my own podcast called The Blackcast. It's spelled BLADTCAST. Blackcast.com. That's where you find everything you need.
Fantastic. Of course, I am Flobo Boyce. You can find me on Twitter at Flobo Boyce or on Instagram at Flobito and Flobito.com. And if you love comedy, the album is called American for Now, streaming now on Spotify and Apple devices. Thank you so much for tuning in.
And vote Flobo.
And vote for me. If you live in Palms, Los Angeles, hashtag Boyce in the Hood. I'm running for business associate of Palms Neighborhood Council. Until next time, or next week, we'll handle episodes 5 and 6. Jackie will be right back here in the studio. So again, until next time, buzz you later.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.